All right, so we're going to be talking just about the Wizards season as a whole. I have some stats here. So
All right.
obviously, F on the season, they're 13-58. Their projected win totals are 17 wins at this point. So
Yeah,
they did not meet that at all.
I'm happy with
Points
enough.
per game, 17th. Yeah, F is, you know, 113.7 points per game. That's 17th in the league. Their opponent's points per game, 123.7. That's last, obviously. You could tell by watching they're the worst defensive team in the league. They're number one in pace, which they say all the time on the broadcast. But their offensive rating is 110.6, which is 26th. Do you know the other five teams that are worse than them? Keep in mind, this is being worse than the Wizards.
Yeah, that's a very, very low bar to clear.
Like, this is
Yeah,
bad.
it's not like these are teams that should be being worse than the Wizards. You said this is offensive rating specifically?
Offensive rating specifically. Defensive rating, 119.6. That's dead last.
Yeah,
obviously. We knew
we
that.
could see that just watching on the floor.
They have like, what, two positive defenders, probably?
Yeah, Bilal and Denny, I would say, are the only positive defenders on this team. Maybe
Yeah.
some very, very fringe rotational guy like Omaru
Johnny
or
Davis,
or
yeah.
something, but at that point
No,
it
I'm
doesn't
kidding, not
matter. All right, worst teams offensively. I'm gonna go ahead and guess the Pistons probably because they just
Yeah,
look...
Pistons are up there. They're actually right
Okay,
behind them.
okay. That's actually surprising. I'm
I put this
surprised
in
there's
order,
three
right?
teams that
Did I
are
put this in
worse
order?
than the Wizards and the Pistons in offensive rating.
Offensively. Well, yeah. I watched Awful Coaching, and he does stuff about the Pistons. And it's really funny, and I've told you this before, but I'll say it on where he'll be talking and he'll see like Jaden Ivey just in the paint. And he's like, Jaden Ivey, why are you in the paint? You're not guarding anyone. You're just standing around. And then I'm looking at him like, yeah, it's right. Jaden Ivey is just standing around, not guarding anyone. But
That is one thing.
somehow that team's better than the Wizards.
I was just going to say, I think that is one thing that's getting super overblown in today's media kind of landscape and is rebounding way too hard the other way. People are going too hard to say that coaching doesn't matter nowadays and that people should just keep the coaches that they've got cohesion with and that they know their schemes and everything. But if you look at a team like the Pistons, that's clearly a coaching issue right there. You should know what you're supposed to be doing defensively in your role, and if your coach isn't there to clearly define it, then I think you need to be exploring other options at coaching. Obviously, we've had so many different coaching changes in recent years, so people are getting kind of tired of it, starting to question, is it really working? A lot of these teams seem to look similar with the old coach and the new coach, but you really, especially in a team like the Pistons, you need a coach that's going to set the defensive standard, tell you exactly what you're going to need to be doing. Otherwise, you're going to, end up like Jaden Ivey, just kind of sitting around doing nothing.
Yeah, just standing around. Yeah, and even if you look at like the Bucks with Adrian Griffin at the beginning of the season, they were terrible defensively at the beginning of the season. And I know like everyone's like, oh, Doc Rivers, like, just blowing leads and stuff, but that defense has turned it around completely. Even with Damian Lillard being like one of their guards.
And I actually was talking to a coworker of mine about this, with specifically the Bucks, with kind of there's some friction between Dame and specifically Brook Lopez, but some other players, and that I think that's one thing that Doc Rivers is perfect at is like he's going to come in, he's going to work with the relationships between the players, he's going to get players to buy in that otherwise wouldn't buy in underneath a different system. So for a team like the Bucks, I really do think he can work out where you have the talent and you already it's kind of static with your rotation. You're not bringing in some random people that you're not going to be playing in the playoffs anyway. So I think, if anything, this team is the one that Doc Rivers could help get over the hump just because of what he's specifically good at. But shifting back over to the three teams I have left that are worse than the Pistons and the Wizards.
Well, let me make sure I did this in order, but you keep guessing while it was.
I mean, I got to say probably... I don't know. I hate to say it because they've been so good ever since he went down, but I gotta say the Grizzlies without Jaw.
The Grizzlies are last in offensive
makes
rating,
sense.
106.9, which is really bad. I feel like they've been better recently with the emergence of Gigi Jackson, but it was bad for most of the year.
Plus, it's like one small bright spot doesn't really help the rest of their woes. Like you have Jaren Jackson, he's a great offensive player. Better defensively. But,
Who's missed like half the year.
But he missed a lot too, yeah. And besides that, it's like, who else do you really have? These players are playing against real NBA players, and most of them are, not that caliber.
Yeah, well, Trey Jemison apparently can smoke the Wizards.
I
So,
mean,
but
that's not a very high bar. Pretty much anyone can smoke the Wizards. Um, Probably the Raptors, I would
there's
say.
three more in the
Yeah.
middle.
No, the
No, the
Raptors are
Raptors are
higher.
higher than the
Wow.
Wizards.
I guess with Scotty Barnes taking such a huge leap, that's kind of to be expected, even though he's been out for a little bit.
Yeah.
I gotta think over the whole year. I want to say the seven.
These three teams are obviously not in playoff
Yeah.
contention. I would be amazed if they.
I wanted to say like the Sixers or something recently, but Embiid was there for so long that I think that's still probably brought up. And Maxi's so good that he can kind of take over that load.
Yeah, the Sixers are pretty much right in the middle,
Yeah.
along with the Lakers. The Lakers' offensive and defensive rating, by the way, both 115.2, exactly the same.
Wow.
That's very
That is
interesting.
interesting. One of those weird little statistical anomalies. Let's see. Could it be the Jazz? They're pretty bad. Okay.
No, the Jazz are actually better than a lot of teams. The Jazz, I don't know how NBA.com determines this, but the Jazz are better than the Cavaliers, the Timberwolves, the Magic, and the Miami Heat. Obviously, the Miami Heat. The Miami Heat's offense, we know it's a disaster. It's kind of funny. We're going off on a tangent a little bit, but everyone's like, "Oh, the Miami Heat, like their offense is a complete disaster," and it's true. And then there's still like 7 teams that are much worse than them offensively. One obviously being the Washington Wizards.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of goes back to what I was saying about coaching. Spo just really knows how to get the most out of all of his players, no matter what. And even if they're not traditionally in a role where they can put up production, he's going to find a way to, get them an easy bucket and have them show themselves on the court. There must be another East team I'm missing. Oh, is it the Nets? Are the Nets worse? What the
Nope,
fuck?
the Nets
Wow.
are higher than the Wizards. You are missing
That's
an East
surprising.
team though, and it's.
Did I not say the Hornets already?
Did
I say the Hornets?
I don't know if you said the Hornets, but the Hornets
think I
is
said the
29th
Hornets.
in the
Okay.
league.
So the Hornets.
And then the last two are West
Okay.
teams. Both of them have coming into the draft very high level rookies. Or so we
Yeah,
thought.
I was thinking Blazers Spurs is the last two just because they're the worst teams.
Yeah, the Blazers and the Spurs are the last two. The Blazers, not the Blazers. I'm sorry. The Spurs. I think they'll be a lot better next year. They have to get Wemby the ball more. They'll fix that pretty.
Yeah,
easily.
I mean, Wemby's not playing enough minutes where he can just kind of buoy up that offensive rating by himself. And they don't want a good offense right now. I feel like they're trying to instill that defense in their young players while they're still finding talent.
Yeah. Though, and we could talk about this later, but I think the Spurs, and I know I was listening to Kenny say this on his podcast, the Spurs should be going not all in next year, but they should be, okay, we're making the transition from rebuilding to, okay, now we got to buy, and now we got to actually try to make a playoff push. Because otherwise they're going to fall into this trap of, perpetual rebuild and building a losing culture, yada yada yada. They have their franchise guy. Let's start winning.
I mean, the thing to me is like not even just let's start winning so we don't get into that kind of twilight zone that no one likes to be in. But to me, it's like this guy clearly wants to compete. He clearly wants to go out and put everything on the court. So I feel like you need to. He's the type of player where you need to satisfy that need in him. Otherwise, he's going to go find that somewhere else. So you really, really want to put out a competitive product next year. And I think that's what they're planning on doing with this year, kind of testing out some lineups with like, can we have Sohan play point guard in like some minutes?
Yeah,
that was
that's not
awful.
work.
I hate that. But you might as well try it.
I'm so glad Trey Jones is doing
Yeah,
it now.
me too. Maybe get the other Jones brother to help him out in the front court. That would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
But I do think
Backcourt.
backcourt. Sorry, I do think they should look for a key piece. Maybe not something that they're going to keep around long term, even, but just some point guard or someone that could help Wemby get the ball and kind of. He doesn't really need it, but help him along with his development and give him some easy buckets while he's figuring everything out.
Yeah, I agree. I remember at the beginning of this offseason, I was talking to my friend, and he was like, the Spurs should go heavily into Brook Lopez and kind of play Wemby at the 4 and see how that works. But obviously they didn't do that. And Wemby's going to be a great 5
Yeah.
as soon as he
For
bulks
sure.
up.
Yeah, I'm curious to see if they're gonna try and attempt the Wemby at four at all because that's kind of been the what's the word for it, flavor of the month for a lot of these teams. Like you are getting these centers that allows your big guys to kind of roam around a bit more, be more flexible. I feel like it kind of started with a guy like Kevin Durant. He's not a center at all, but he's tall enough that you can kind of put him at that four and exploit those mismatches. And then other teams kind of realize like, oh, it's not a bad idea. Now we have, Giannis, Anthony Davis, Carl Anthony Towns, all these really good offensive players that can kind of hide their deficiencies on the defensive side. Not that AD and Giannis need to hide it, but it just unleashes them
But they could
to
play.
kind of play the whole floor instead of just being locked into this center role.
Yeah, they could play help
Mm-hmm.
on defense instead of, guarding an Embiid or
Yeah.
a Jokic as they tried to do in the playoffs.
I mean, to me, that's the only bright side of that Lakers team is, they have the personnel that allows AD to not have to be locked into this one spot, and it allows him to really be the roamer and shut down a lot of these players that he wouldn't have the opportunity to guard if he was center.
Yeah, Jackson Hayes really helped with
Mm-hmm.
that. And even to a lesser extent, the Wizards did that last year when they played Porzingis and Gafford
Mm-hmm.
together. Obviously, that team a lot less wins than we hoped with their personnel, but
Yeah, but
it is what it
Porzingis
is.
still, he was unlocked enough to really flourish offensively, and, people will say come into his own offensively, but I think it's really just shown what was always there, just he didn't get the opportunity to show it in Dallas.
Yeah, because we saw it with the Knicks too. It's just Dallas didn't give them the
Yeah.
opportunity, and we're seeing it now with the
Oh, yeah.
Celtics.
I
But
mean,
again,
that everyone knew that. I mean, maybe not everyone, but everyone that's paying attention knew how good that core was going to be the second it was put together. So I'm not very surprised by that.
yeah. All right, let's talk about the
Mm-hmm.
Wizards. Obviously, we talked about their overall season, how bad it was, but we can take a look at some of the bright spots this team has, including obviously a high draft pick, but Bilal Coulibaly, man, he's been great. I have some stats here. He's played
Mm-hmm.
63 games, which will put him eligible for all rookie team. I don't think he's going to
Mm-hmm.
get it. I know the minimum 65, but it's 65 or 62 with a season-ending injury. So obviously he had the season-ending injury. He'll have enough to qualify. 8.4 points a game. That is good for 15th among rookies. 4 rebounds, 1 assist. 43% from the field. 34.6% from 3, which has gone down a lot more recently than it was at the beginning of the year because he was shooting like 40% from 3 at one
Yeah.
point. 70% from the line, and then about a steal and a block a game, which is amazing. 8th among rookies in steals, 6th in blocks, and Wemby is obviously number 1, 217 blocks, which is
Yeah, I
nuts.
mean, he's number one in blocks per game in the whole NBA, so I'm not surprised that he's number one for rookies.
Yeah.
But before I get too technical
Yeah.
with Bilal, I just want to say that it's such a fresh breath of air to have a rookie that can just come in and immediately contribute. I feel like we haven't had that in so many years as Wizards fans. And, I get it, Kispert and Denny were good their rookie year, but maybe it's coaching, maybe it's how we're using them, but just looking at it, you can really see that Bilal belongs on the court in a way that I don't think I saw from Denny, Kispert, Rui, definitely not Johnny Davis.
Johnny Davis doesn't belong. Johnny Davis doesn't belong on the
No,
court now.
I don't think he's ever going to belong in the court unless we're talking about the G League. And even then, it's a stretch. But just providing that defense where you can comfortably put him on the team's best player, he's not going to foul out, he's not going to let them just torch him all night, and actually being able to contribute on offense beyond just sitting in the corner and shooting threes like we've seen other rookies being used before. It's just so nice to see. Even if he doesn't develop into a star, I definitely think we're going to get something productive out of him long term.
Yeah, I could definitely see obviously we always joke oh, he's gonna bulk up and be like Giannis, but I think obviously a more what's it called, I don't know the word I'm talking about, more realistic outlook is like an OG Anunoby type of player, which again is really good. For reference, Avdia in his first year he averaged 6.3 points per game. Obviously that was the Westbrook year. They just kind of had him sitting in the corner. He shot 31% from 3. Not a good percentage. We'll talk about Denny in a bit and his improvements. But With Bilal Koulibaly, I mean, I remember I was watching the Heat game that they won. And we'll talk about that Heat game when we go into the Heat subreddit later. Um, but that game he won, there was a portion of that game where Koulibaly was guarding Jaime Jaquez, and the Heat went to Jaime Jaquez for 3 or 4 straight possessions. Bilal locked him down every time without fouling, and it was like, oh man, he's here. But he's still got some things to work on, and hopefully we'll see it in the summer league next year, and then in the NBA as well. His season high, by the way, 21 points versus Boston on February 9th, a game that they actually almost won, and that was a fully healthy Boston team. So.
Yeah, and I want to say I don't expect him to turn to Giannis or anything like that, but I think that Wizards fans are too used to being too pessimistic. There's nothing wrong with speculating a little bit. It still says he's 6'6" on every stats page you see. He's not 6'6". He's at least 6'8", 6'9" at this point. He's already bulked up a little bit. He's growing. It's only up. He's supposed to be a high risk, high reward pick. I haven't seen any risk from him at all. Just it's all been reward. Even if it takes him a couple years, I really think he's gonna be maybe not an all-star level talent, but I could definitely see him third or fourth best player on a playoff team easily. And honestly, right now he's
absolutely.
probably like sixth or seventh best player on a playoff team.
Yeah, you could definitely see him in a Mikal Bridges role, or like I said, OG Anunoby role. It's great to see.
It is great to see. But moving beyond just Bilal Koulibaly, I think for me personally, I'm a big Kuzma fan. He's been the brightest spot of the entire season for me. He's still producing well. Moved into the number one role, which as we can see from other players like Jordan Poole is not always the case. He had a few years to kind of get used to it under Beal, kind of see how things were going to go. But he's just entering his prime. He's 28, 29 right now. He just had 31 points the other night. You can see his defense is fine. It's nothing to write home about. But his offense is really what we're looking to get out of him. And he's been producing that this year, given the role, for sure. I would love...
Career high in points.
Yeah, I would love to see him go to a contender in the future, but, if he wants to stay here, why don't we keep him for a year or two? He's got a really nice contract. This is last year the contract's the cheapest year of the whole thing, so it's always going to stay valuable. He's not...
Well, his contract's declining.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, the last year is the cheapest.
Oh, okay,
so
gotcha.
It makes him more valuable to trade later. And, we don't get players very often that want to stay in DC. So if someone wants to stay here, I want to keep them as long as we can. I mean, as long as it's smart to do. As we can see from Beal, that's not always smart to keep him as long as we can.
Well, yeah, if you're giving out a supermax, that's always the case. But with Kuz, I know a lot of fans, and I've seen this on Twitter, on Reddit, people being upset with him. But I think he unlocks so much more than what just he brings on the offensive end. Like, I don't think Denny would take this leap without Kuz being there helping him. So just, when we're talking about like, oh, why is Kuz taking all these clutch shots? Why is Kuz like not looking for Denny or whatever? Kuz is the guy that, in a clutch situation, obviously, I'd rather have Luka with the ball, but for this team, I mean, he's a guy that's going to create his own shot. There's not many people on the team right now that can actually do that. So it is what it is. I like Kuz. Is he going to be around when they're hopefully good? Probably not. But for now, he's fun to watch. He's fun to see interact with the players.
He's the only reason I can watch a full Wizards game at this point.
Yeah.
And
his percentages aren't even that bad. He's shooting 46 from the field, which I believe is a career high. Yeah, he's not a career high from three. It's 33%, but he has taken a lot of tough threes.
And I think it kind of falls by the wayside just how tough these clutch shots are to make. Even these players that are like known for clutch shot making are still shooting like 30-something, 40-something % in the clutch. It's, really rare to get a player that thrives in the clutch like that. Even players that have that reputation, like Kobe. Kobe famously shot 34% in the clutch over his career, I believe. So it's like, I'm fine with having him take those shots, even if he doesn't make 70% of them, because, like you said, he's the only one that's capable of taking those shots. Him and Jordan Poole, that is.
Yeah, which is a really sad outlook, but it's the current outlook of the Wizards, and why they're 13 and 58. And I want to bring up this clutch record.
Yeah, no worries. Quick. Yeah, I remember they pulled that up during the game last night, and I was like, oh my god, this is they had like 7 games that were even eligible to be clutch games, let alone winning them.
They are. It looks like 7-22 in
Uh,
clutch games. That doesn't feel right, but
I believe that. It,
actually, I do believe that. I believe that entirely because clutch games are within
yeah,
5. So.
yeah. I mean, they're pretty lenient with the definition of clutch games.
But hey, not the worst in the league. That's the Detroit Pistons, who are 7-24, and you could tell because the game a couple days ago, where Kate took that ill-advised three up 10, were tied with 10 seconds left, and then bam, hit the game winner.
Famously, the Wizards do not want to be the Pistons, so I'm just happy we're above them again.
True.
It was a bad couple weeks when we were below the Pistons in the ratings. I feel bad.
Yeah. At that point, you don't want to be that team. Let's talk about Jordan Poole.
Let's do it.
Jordan Poole obviously started the season really, really bad. It was a rough first stretch. He has come into his own. He was switched to the bench by Brian Keefe, and he's really kind of taken off from there. And we've seen flashes of what he was during that finals run in Golden State. And that's what the Wizards need. He's here for the long term. He's here for 4 years. Wizards fans get used to it. He's here for 4 years. They're not going to be able to trade him on his contract, and I think he's been pretty good at since Keith took over. I think coming off the bench has helped. I think putting him in the point guard position has helped.
I'm gonna play devil's advocate here. I actually do think that his contract will be tradable. I don't think it's going to be tradable now. I don't think it's going to be tradable next year. Hell, I'm not even sure if it's going to be tradable the year after. But I think what a lot of fans forget is that the NBA over the past 15 years has exploded financially. So, in 3 years' time, who's to say that these giant contracts aren't going to be handed out to above average role players? And looking at Jordan Poole as he is right now, 24 years old, he's shown that he can do it before. I still think he can get back to that productive role player at worst floor and maybe still get some value from the contract. I honestly don't even think that it's beyond the realm of possibility that he stays with the Wizards long term and is a nice supporting guy for, the next couple years of the rebuild.
Yeah, I mean, he's a prototype 6-man. You want him coming off the bench, being a spark plug, and that's kind of what he's done since Keith took over.
And that's what he's been doing for the last 3 or 4 years he's been in the league. People forget he's still, a 24-year-old player. I think modern times things are moving super fast, just not just sports, just everything. So people expect, we need to have a new movie every year. We need to have a new album from, an artist every year. And they're expecting these NBA players to take these giant leaps overnight that, isn't really feasible. And I think he was kind of built up too much with the expectations before the year started, which made his start just look so much worse. Like, you had people like Kevin Garnett saying that he was going to have a James Harden type resurgence this year and stuff. And it's like, no, it's ridiculous. It's completely different situations, It's not. He hasn't shown that he could be the number one guy besides flashes of it in Golden State when he was kind of forced into that role and they weren't expecting it. And now he's starting to see...
And he still wasn't great.
No, he still wasn't great. But, he's had to see different coverages. He's had to see different defenses. He's had to see different plays than what he was used to in Golden State. He doesn't have the luxury of playing next to the greatest shooter of all time, of course. So...
What do you mean Tyus Jones is on the team?
So, I still think he can get together. I'm a lot higher on him than I see a lot of other Wizards fans being.
Yeah, do you remember that Reddit post at the beginning of the season? Or maybe it was like halfway through the season, and they were talking about the disappointments of the year or whatever. And they were like, the Wizards with playoff aspirations, and they're like 9-40, and everyone was like, playoff aspirations? Have you seen the roster? This is not a playoff
I don't know
team.
how, but the Wizards have like some of the most casual fans in the league. It's like, it's just people that used to be Bullets fans, I guess, and aren't really paying attention because they're so bad. But I just don't understand how you can have people that, follow a team like the Wizards expecting such things from them in a spot where they're clearly rebuilding. I mean...
And in the spot where they haven't shown that for the past 20 years.
I mean, 20 years. 50 years. Shit.
They had that one stretch of trouble.
I mean, it's like the guy we saw in Chipotle when we were going to the Wizards game in person that he told us we needed to trade for Draymond Green so we can try to turn the season around and make a playoff push. It's like he's clearly not paying
Yeah, and
attention.
then trade for
Yeah,
Kyrie.
trade for Kyrie after.
I guess we would have been a play-in
No,
team. Actually, we probably
no.
wouldn't still be. We probably still would
Yeah,
miss the
no.
playoffs.
Kyrie would not have thrived in DC. It's too liberal for him.
No, yeah,
They think the Earth is round and that
beliefs
the
it wouldn't
vaccine
work.
works, so he doesn't really fit in.
Yeah, he wouldn't be able to. He wouldn't be able to
No,
make it.
he wouldn't. All right, so one thing that I'm very passionate about that I want to move into is grading this new front office versus the last front office. So I honestly was a lot higher on Tommy Shepard than a lot of other people were. His draft picks were dog shit. We can all agree on that. But
I'm gonna play. I'm gonna
okay,
play differently. I think his draft. And
no,
sorry
you're
to
good.
interrupt, like in the middle, but I think people are a little disingenuous when I've seen it all the time. Oh, his draft picks were dog shit. His draft picks. Johnny Davis was the only
Yeah,
terrible draft pick I
I
think
agree.
he had. Rui was fine. Did he draft Rui? I think he
I
did
think
draft
so.
Rui. Rui was fine. Or was that the? Or was that Ernie? Was that his first pick?
I'm not sure.
Regardless, Denny Avdia obviously I think was a great pick for the spot. Sure,
Mm-hmm.
Halliburton was there. You know, whatever. You know who else was there? I got to look at the draft pick, but I'm some
Yeah,
not good player
and
like
let's be honest, like it's
Killian
not like
Hayes
the
or
Wizards were
something.
the only team to pass on Halliburton. 12 other teams also made the decision to not pick him, and
Yeah, for every Vassell Halliburton, there's a Kira
exactly.
Lewis Jr. or a Jalen Smith who haven't produced
Yeah,
as
and
well as him.
historically, I don't trust the
So
Wizards to reach on a player like Halliburton. And Denny has those physical tools that maybe people were questioning in Halliburton. Um, but he didn't really have like a strong idea of what he wanted to do with those draft picks. Um, but they were fine. They weren't terrible. He made the best trades that I've ever seen the Wizards make in my entire life, with the Westbrook trade and the Porzingis trades. Those were amazing.
the Porzingis
Yeah,
trade
that
was a
was insane. I
steal.
mean, the Westbrook trade was insane. Yeah,
Yeah,
that
that
was
was
a
a steal
huge steal.
too.
We got Kuzma, who's our current number one option. Montrezl Harrell, who, wasn't great, but whatever. And KCP, who we traded to the Nuggets for players that we don't
But
have
that was a
anymore.
bad trade.
But he was good. KCP's a good player. Um, but
Yeah.
that being said, I still think that the new front office has just completely blown the performance of Tommy Shepard in his office out of the water. I've surprisingly seen a lot of Wizards fans questioning this new front office. Like, they're talking about how many games we're losing and how terrible we look, and I just want to ask them, have you not been paying attention to what the Wizards are doing? The whole point of bringing in this new front office was to get out of mediocrity, trade away Beal, trade away Porzingis, and finally embrace just being bad for years. It's going to be a very long process. This is not going to happen overnight. And this is just step one, which, if you look at a team like the Rockets, you look at a team like even the Magic when they were first rebuilding, they don't have good habits. Honestly, I think we look better defensively than the Rockets ever looked for the past couple of years before they got Udoka.
The
They
Rockets
were
were
a
a
disaster.
disaster with
Yeah,
Steven
we're
Silas.
looking better than that. And Below is a great pick. Everything they've done to me makes sense. I get how people are down on Jordan Poole, but Chris Paul wasn't doing anything for this team. And getting him, at least just moving him for something is good. We got a couple picks along with Poole. And like I said, I still am higher than on Poole than some, so that might give me some bias there. But still, I think that we're set up well long term looking at these two coming into our front office. One of them helped build a great organization in Oklahoma State that's way overperforming what people thought. And what a lot of people actually don't know is that they were eyeing Koulibaly as well. So we're bringing in some of that experience already, and a guy who's been able to make those tough decisions with rebuilding on the Clippers, where we're gonna have to trade away some fan favorites at some point. It's tough to confront, but I think it's not beyond the realm of possibility that Kispert gets moved, that if Denny breaks out and we can get some really really good pieces from him, it's possible that Denny gets moved. I think really anyone but Bilal is on the table right now, so we need someone who's able to make those tough decisions and not let sentimentality come into it with when we're looking to just build a good roster.
Yeah, and I agree completely. And even looking to like some of the trades he's
Mm-hmm.
made already. Here I have the Beal trade pull up, right? It's Bradley Beal, Isaiah Todd, Jordan Goodwin to the Suns. Isaiah Todd obviously out of the league, Jordan Goodwin not on
Yeah.
the Suns anymore. So They pretty much only got Bradley Beal. Wizards, who everyone was saying worst contract in the league by far. That was like a consensus among the NBA world.
Cool. Funny how that happens.
Wizards in return, 6 second-round picks, 4 first-round pick swaps. Landry Shamet, who's been great this year, well, not sure if he's going to be back next year or what's going to happen with him, but he's been great. They will probably be able to get some value for him or just keep him. And then obviously Jordan Poole through Chris Paul. I think that was a good trade. Bradley Beal obviously has been pretty good with Phoenix. Phoenix not really performing up to how we kind of thought they were going to. But I wouldn't even see it as trades. Obviously nothing will beat Tommy Shepard. There's 2 things I want to say about Tommy Shepard. One, trading the 2 biggest DC villains on the team in Bertans and Dinwiddie for Porzingis was a absolute masterclass. And I know Mavs fans would be like, "Oh, Porzingis wasn't doing it." That was a masterclass. I'm sorry. That was an amazing trade for the Wizards. And then when they had Scott Brooks and he insisted on playing Jerome Robinson with Bradley Beal, and Tommy was just like, "Nah, fuck that," and then just cut him. That was so funny to me.
I hated Jerome Robinson so much. I would get so mad watching him play with that 3-guard lineup with fucking Troy Brown Jr. and Raul Neto or Ish Smith or some shit. Just having him get cut that day before the game, it warmed my heart. And honestly, like, it's rare to see fans of other teams not defend a trade that they've made recently, but the Westbrook trade and the Porzingis trade are the 2 trades that the 2 biggest trades I've seen recently where fans of the other team have agreed that they got fleeced. It was just insane. I don't understand how you could get Porzingis for Dinwiddie and Bertans. Like, what the fuck? We didn't even trade any picks. It was just those 2 straight up. Yeah,
we got a pick back. We got a second round. Yeah. And I know, the Mavs went to the conference finals. That was a lot of, let's be honest, that was a lot of Brunson and Luka doing their thing. I'm not giving Dinwiddie credit for that.
No.
And obviously I'm not giving Bertans credit for that because he's going to be out of the league once this big contract is up. Obviously some bad contracts handed out by Shepard. But
yeah, but, I mean, the Wizards have been giving out bad contracts for 40 years, so not much you can do about that. I'm just happy we're finally giving out contracts that aren't bankrupting us and allow us to make some moves. But honestly, Dinwiddie played his best basketball of his career in Dallas, I think. I genuinely believe that. And he still was not that impactful. That's just who he is. He's never he's never been that
I think he was really good his first stint in Brooklyn, which kind of led to the Wizards signing him in the first place. Yeah, Dallas, he was pretty good, but now I think, he's in a Reggie Bullock role. So it's a lot.
I'll come clean. I was very excited for him to come to DC. I really thought big things were going to happen. That 10-3 run really fooled me. I thought he was going to be here long term.
They were 10-3 and he was ass.
Except for his 4-game winners that he would hit contested half court shots somehow. He's such a weird player.
But no love for Dinwiddie here after his comments. I feel like a lot of fan bases don't like.
He's thrown every single fan base he got traded really from under the bus. He threw the Mavs under the bus immediately. He threw Brooklyn under the bus the second time. He threw under the bus. It's like, why are you trying to act like things are different? If teams are bad, if you're criticizing teams right after you were on them, there's only one common denominator there. It's not the team. It's probably your fault. And all things considered, hearing from everyone from Brooklyn, Dallas, Washington, he's a pretty shitty teammate. Doesn't really do shit. Everyone knows he's into crypto. If you know anyone that's really into crypto, you know how fucking annoying that can be. So I don't think he's missed anywhere. Honestly, I don't think he's going to be missed when he leaves LA.
Yeah, we'll see what they have to say about him in LA after this playoff run is done, which could be one game.
Yeah, that's one of my most anticipated series. If it ends up being Warriors-Lakers, that would be, oh my god. It would be such a fitting end to that kind of LeBron-Steph era. You had them battling out for 7 games in the finals, and now you have best of 1 battling it out to even make the playoffs.
Yeah, in the 9-10 matchup too, not even yeah. But honestly, the Rockets are on such a roll. Amen Thompson's looking amazing. Fred VanVleet, Jabari Smith, who got into a fist fight yesterday. Obviously no Alperen Sengun, but I think the Rockets are going to
I
catch the Warriors. They have a game
I think
coming
it's
up
going to
with them.
happen as well. Isn't that like Tuesday they play?
It's soonish. I'm not sure exactly what the day is. I'm not going to look it up. But I know the Rockets play the Trailblazers next, and the Warriors play
Okay.
Minnesota.
Okay, cool.
So the Rockets should gain a game on them
Yeah, I mean,
there
I can't see
to
Minnesota
catch up.
losing to this Golden State team, even without Cat. Like, I just don't see it happening. Ant has just stepped into a role where I don't see him letting them lose a game like that.
Yeah, and oh man, Ant's so
He's
good.
amazing.
I want to
Yeah,
move on though. I'm gonna skip some of these. We could talk about it another time. Let's talk about Ted
yeah,
moving out
let's
of
do it.
DC. Cause, oof, I mean, when it first came out, I mean, I knew it was gonna
Yeah,
be a
I
terrible
was
move.
furious.
Because there's no metro station there right now. They're building one, and the people in Virginia don't want it
Yeah,
there. And you look at DC fans, they want so badly the
yeah,
Wizards to be good. They want so badly someone to cheer for, and it's just disheartening to see that they're gonna move out. I remember I was at the Cavs game. They were playing the Cavs. Jordan Poole hit like three threes in a row, and the Wizards took the lead. They went on a run to take the lead, and Jordan Poole like hopped on the stanchion and was like, "This is
yeah,
my house!" Like he did a John Wall thing, and the crowd just
yep,
went nuts. It was like one of the loudest, since when we went to the Nets games, which, you know, and then obviously the Cavs went on a run and won, but DC wants to root for their team so bad, and you see it with when the Nationals were good. Stadiums sold out. They wanted the Nats to win so bad. The Capitals, they fill out their stadium every game. It's just a matter of being good. So moving out isn't a solution, and it'll ruin the area around
yeah. I
Chinatown.
mean, the second I fucking saw that news, even the proposition, I was so angry. It was the most despicable, fucking slimy thing Ted could have done. The DMV is a basketball area. Forget the teams being good. Forget fucking anything else. Everybody living in the DMV loves basketball. UMD basketball, uh, just like pro am games, everything. Everybody shows up if there's something to show up for. And Ted hasn't given us anything to show up for the past 50 years. We haven't had anything
Yep.
since 2017
We had
maybe.
that one
Yeah,
year with John
exactly.
Wall. That was it.
uh
Yeah.
and then even though there weren't any lofty expectations for the team, people showed out for the team. We went to the game against the Nets where they won. I think that was December 29th, something like that. And we saw it against the
Yeah,
game,
around then.
like in the game last night. When the team is performing well and giving them something to root for, Wizards fans are there cheering them on. Kuzma came out after the game. We were out on the 29th and said that that was the best crowd he had ever seen inside of Capital One Stadium. If you move the team over to Alexandria, that's not going to follow. I know people are saying disingenuously,
Yeah.
"Oh, it's just over the river. It's not that far. It's a 20-minute drive." Look, if you live in DC, you know that's not a 20-minute drive. You're adding another 45 minutes an hour onto your commute. If you're coming from Maryland, that's even worse. It doesn't even really help people in Alexandria. You're building it next to a fucking airport. You're gonna have planes flying over
I know
mid game. What the fuck
that.
is wrong with you? And then you're gonna say, "Oh no, well you can park at the airport and take the train over." What the fuck? I was so happy to see Virginia
Yeah, it's
not
like
accept that. The governor was just trying to shoehorn something that he probably was personally involved in, honestly, knowing politicians. And now it's honestly heartening to see DC put a foot down and say, "No, we're not going to let you do that to our city." And I would love to see Mayor
yeah,
Bowser followed up with a uh, proposition, maybe a package for the area to help revive Chinatown, maybe build some new infrastructure, maybe update some things that are in need of dire repair around there, maybe even subsidize some small businesses to revive the area. Uh, that area was, to me, such a sad story because you know everyone knows if you live in DC that it's kind of not been the greatest area to visit for a while historically, and then moving in the Wizard Stadium, allowing the Caps to play there, with Ovechkin, one of the greatest Caps players of all time, it really helped build the area back up. During the mid 2010s, early 2010s, we were finally seeing, Chinatown start to thrive again. People were actually going there to spend recreational times, not for the Wizards or the Caps, but just to be there. I remember going with my family at that time. It was an amazing spot to go to eat, to just walk around. There's so many cool things to see. And then after
exactly.
COVID, it's slowly been declining to the point where now it's kind of returning to where it was before the Wizards moved there, and moving the team away from there would, I think, be the final death blow for an area that just sorely is in need for the community to come together and help it out, and even beyond the community,
It would
just
absolutely
the
devastate it.
legislature.
Yeah, it would absolutely devastate the area if they moved out. Luckily, they shot it down and they won't be moving out. Um, but I had a story and I can't remember it. So if I do
Well,
remember,
I'll
it will
just
come
waffle
back.
a little more while you think then. Because I did see that it's obviously not going to happen anymore with the ultimatum that DC gave. But even after trying to move to Virginia, Ted Leonisis was like, oh, well, let me investigate Maryland. And I personally, my family lives in Maryland. They live in Silver Spring. So whenever I'm home, I'm in the Silver Spring area.
Oh, don't dox us.
But I don't want it in Maryland. I don't think any Marylanders want it in Maryland. This is a DC team.
No,
DC
DC.
teams
It's the
belong in
perfect
DC.
location. And I know the
Yes.
Commanders are thinking about moving to DC as well. They're in Landover right now, for
Mm-hmm.
those who don't know. I remember what I was going to say. From where I live right now, I could just hop on the metro, and it's like a
Mm-hmm.
20-minute metro ride, and then you just come out
Mm-hmm.
at the stadium, and you can just go in. And obviously tickets are like
Yeah.
$7. Um, if they moved it, that would, obviously become an hour when you think about changing metro lines, when you think about that's really it, actually
Yeah.
changing metro lines, but also the distance. But it is always fun and kind of shows how bad the Wizards are when you walk down the street of Capital One Arena and you have like the flags up, and it's like Alex Ovechkin, TJ Oshie, Johnny Davis. It's like,
Yeah, it is funny the juxtaposition between the Caps being like a world-class organization and then the Wizards just fucking falling apart. Which is why, like, obviously I've been very low on Ted Leonisis with what he's been trying to do from a business side, but I've actually very much appreciated what he's been doing with the team in the past few years of just kind of distancing himself more on saying, hey, I don't know how to run a basketball team. I'm just going to go ahead and let these people that do know how to run a basketball team run my basketball team.
Yep.
And we're finally seeing dividends from it. Because honestly, I think there was a little too much meddling from his part. We heard rumors of, Denny and Rui, which ended up being decent draft picks, being drafted because they were international players, not because of anything specifically about their play. Which to me is like, yeah, you want to expand international markets, but that can happen naturally. You don't need to force that. And to me, it just seems kind of scummy and like trying to run the team like a business, where teams are more competitive than ever. You need any edge you can get. You need people running the team that know how to run the team.
Yeah. Let's talk about young cores, because obviously the Wizards, I would say their young core is probably, Bilal, Denny, Kisper, Jordan Poole, and then you have, your two-way guys. You got Johnny Davis, you got Jared Butler, Patrick Baldwin. How old's Omar?
He's like
Is he
28,
25,
I
26?
think. He's not.
Yeah,
He's
okay,
not
so
part
he's
of that.
not a part of that. But and then whoever they draft upcoming. So where are we ranking this among other teams? Obviously, the Thunder are at the top. They have one of the best young cores in the league. That's been said over and over and over again. They're number one in the West. It's just kind of obvious.
So I really
what other
like this
team?
question. I think it's super interesting because I think a lot of the time you see people comparing young cores where teams are kind of in similar spots and you're comparing a good young core versus another good young core or something like that. And I don't think a lot of people consider that like a team like the Bucks, they don't have a young core really. So they're like
They don't have any
30th.
core. It's like AJ Jackson.
Yeah,
That kind
not
of
really.
it.
So I think the Wizards are in a spot where they're not completely last, of course, but just off the top of my head, I would place them probably middle of the pack. They have some decent pieces that I could see some upside coming out of them in the future. And I think everyone has been so high on Bilal that I think it is kind of falling on the wayside that like it's not a guarantee that he's going to only go up. So there's still a lot of question marks. There's still a lot of risks going on with their young core where I don't feel comfortable putting them in a spot even against like somebody like the Pistons being so bad. I think their young core is way better than our young
I
core
think the
right
Pistons.
now.
Yeah, obviously, I'm
Yeah,
pretty high on the Pistons. Was disappointed to seeing this really, really bad
yeah,
season
it's
from
really
them.
been a shame. And actually,
Uh,
I'm gonna bring that up publicly. I did a few years ago. We were talking about the Magic versus the Pistons. I personally, they were in a similar spot then. I think the Magic were 13th, the Pistons were 14th, something like that. I went ahead and I was like, oh, I think the Magic, could be a sneaky 11 seed or something next year. I think they're gonna be good. And Ben countered back with him saying that he thinks the Pistons young core would be better than the Magic young core. Not even just the young core, the team. For the next year, I think that was 2021. There wasn't too much of a difference between them that year, but this year we're really seeing that, you know.
and I'm gonna hold to it. The Pistons will be better than the Magic
Okay,
when it's all
okay.
said and done.
Hey, I'm
You
gonna
heard it
continue
here
backing
first.
my Wagner brothers and Paolo, but I think I think the Pistons are being a little slept on with their potential. Obviously, they're not living up to it right now, but Cade Cunningham's pretty good. Jalen Duren's great. He's only 19, I think. He might have turned 20 this year.
Yeah, I mean he looks like
Yeah,
he's
he looks like he
25,
belongs in
but
1974, but and they finally got rid of Killian Hayes, which I think is underestimated by a lot of people. That really cleared their team up and improved them a lot. Sometimes addition by
and
subtraction is
Isaiah
what you need.
Livers. Don't forget
True,
Wizards legend
true.
Isaiah Livers.
I still don't think he's going to play a single game in a Wizards jersey, and I don't think he should.
He won't.
We were talking last night about the worst player in the entire league. I said it was Johnny Davis. Ben said he thought it was probably someone else. I think I'm going to change my answer. I'm going to go ahead and say Isaiah Livers is the worst player in the NBA.
He
No,
won't be in the
no.
league next year.
And then it'll be Johnny Davis.
Yeah. Going
Mm-hmm.
back to young cores, though, I know we're talking about the Wizards. Some of the best young cores that I think. Obviously, this question is brought up
Mm-hmm.
over and over and over again amongst like NBA media and stuff. Like you hear this
Mm-hmm.
question constantly. Um, but I don't know. Let's give our thoughts because the people want to hear our mid-20s white dude opinion.
And let's be
Um,
honest, it's being discussed a lot in the media, but I don't think I've ever heard anyone rate the Wizards young core. So,
no. I don't think so either. I think those bottom teams like the
mm-hmm.
Raptors, with Scotty Barnes,
Mm-hmm.
kind of boost that up. I mean, they got R.J. Barrett. I don't know how old R.J. Barrett is now. Who else did they have on that team that could classify into that
Grady Dick.
kind of young core? They have like Grady
Um,
Dick, yeah, Ramsey, who's
would
played
you
well
put
against the
Quickly in
Wizards
that?
last night.
Is he still young enough?
Quickly, yeah, he's
Okay.
around 24
Yeah, I
years
would say
old,
probably
so.
the cutoff is like 25.
Like their young core is
for
pretty
young
good. You got the Hornets, they
Yeah.
got LaMelo, obviously, they got Brandon Miller, who looks great. Outside of these other really bad teams, the Blazers, Shaded Sharp, Scoot
I
doesn't
mean,
look great this
the,
year, but it's a guard. They'll figure it out. He'll
I
figure
think
it out.
any player has a better one of their young cores better than the best of our young core. Because probably our best player right now is
Yes.
Denny out of those players. And he's
Out of
had
those
a
players,
big
probably.
leap since the All Star break for sure, like huge leap. But taking the whole season into account, I mean, comparing him to like someone like Cade Cunningham or like Paolo
Yeah,
Banchero or something,
or
like
Wemby.
yeah, you really can't compare them. But we're year one of the rebuild. A lot of these teams we're talking about are many years into the rebuild. The Pistons are year 5 or 6. The Magic are almost out of their rebuild. The OKC Thunder are completely out of their rebuild. So I do think we got bright futures ahead of us. I mean, definitely ahead of teams like the Bulls or the Hornets or teams that kind of seem to be floundering with no escape. Or the Nets, who
Yeah.
are 26
The
and
Nets.
59
Oh,
with
we were going to talk
no
about
draft picks this year.
we were going to talk about brightest and bleakest futures. And do you want to do that real quick? We'll each pick a bleakest and we'll
Yeah.
each pick a
Yeah, let's
brightest.
go ahead.
Because I want to go first and say the Nets, their future I think is the
Yeah.
bleakest. They don't have draft picks. They don't have a
Yeah.
franchise guy. They don't even have really an all-star player. I mean,
Yeah.
it just looks
Yeah.
bad. And I know people, when the KD, Kyrie stuff happened, people like Nets fandom was like, oh, we finally have people who we could root for.
If that report
I don't see
If
it.
that report that was rumored of 3 first round picks and a good young player plus other players for Macau or whatever it was, if that was real and the Nets turned that down, their entire front office needs to get cleared out. What the fuck are they doing? You don't build around Mikal Bridges.
The Nets have been making bad choices
Yeah,
for 10
yeah.
plus years.
And I'm gonna be honest. I'm not GM for a reason. I don't. I'm not super good with like long term futures of a lot of these players. I thought Mikal was actually gonna play really well this year, and he has in spurts.
I
He
drafted
did.
him in the
He did in
first round.
fantasy, but he hasn't been the franchise player you're gonna need out of a guy that's that age. I think, and I doesn't seem like he's gonna flourish into that at this point. I get things can change quick. Nobody really thought Jimmy Butler was going to be the player he is now at the age Mikal Bridges was, but you know, he just doesn't. I don't think he. I don't think he's going to reach those heights personally.
Yeah, definitely
No.
not Jimmy Butler heights. I mean, maybe he could lead his team to a play-in appearance or playoff appearance.
I
but
mean,
I think
I
that's
think the
kind
Nets
of
expect at least Jimmy Butler hates from him because if you look at it, Jimmy Butler brought his team to the finals. I think that's what the Nets want to do. That's what everyone wants to do. But I guess they're kind of
Oh,
stuck
that's
because they don't
everyone's.
have draft picks. They can't rebuild. They just fuck themselves over so hard,
Yeah.
which they do time and time again.
Yeah, that Celtics trade comes to mind. All right, your bleakest future.
Yes.
You can't say the Nets.
I'm going to go ahead and say the Bulls. I know it's just the easy
Yeah,
answer,
obviously.
but like they don't have anything that valuable. Zach LaVine's always injured. His contract's pretty big. Not a lot of teams have space for him. Not a lot of teams really want his skill set. Sam goes for DeRozan. His contract's not that big, but nobody wants someone that doesn't really shoot threes and just spams mid ranges in 2024.
And DeRozan's a
Yes.
free agent, and the Bulls are looking at
Yes,
extension
which
talks.
would be a
which
huge
is
mistake.
Interesting.
Vucevic has not showed that he can be the starting point guard on any serious playoff team. Or sorry, yeah,
Center.
center. And Drummond's a good backup. That's one of the only bright spots they have. I really like Kobe White. He's great. And I still think that they have some pieces that could pan out. Just the management really is the big issue for me. They haven't shown that they are serious and want to actually compete. Like, they're in the spot where I saw the Wizards last year, where it's just like, we don't have a good enough
Yep.
team to really compete. We can maybe compete for the play-in, but, you know, I think they're really looking for ticket sales and to get butts in the seat. And I think they still have the number one attendance this year, so obviously they don't feel very compelled to change anything. But just from the pure basketball side, I think that if they don't blow it up this year or next, they're just going to be stuck spinning the wheels for years and years and years.
Yeah, I agree. You want to
Yeah,
take
I'll take
Brightest
brightest first. So this one's really tough. There's a lot of really nice young teams where they're on the up and up, and I think they're going to be going ahead doing good things for a long time. But I'm just going to go ahead and take the easy answer and say the OKC Thunder. They're one of, if not the youngest team in the league, and they're the number one seed in the West right now. And you know, this is a Western Conference where we might have teams that have 50 wins that aren't in the playoffs; they're in the play-in, and might not even make the playoffs. Period. And they just aren't just number one. They've comfortably been number one for quite some time now. I get that Minnesota had injuries that have caused them to fall a little bit, but the Thunder were always there in contention for number one, even tying Minnesota a few times. And it's not like, you know, they're going to regress. There's the only way to go from here is up. This is Chet's rookie year. This is Jalen Williams is 24, 23. Shea, this is his first year really leading a team like this. And all of them have looked comfortable, adjusted to their roles. They understand exactly what they need to do. They understand exactly how many points that the team needs out of them. They just have, you know, a maturity that I think is beyond the years of the team that they have together, while still having that fun, playful aspect that, you know, builds that cohesion and really brings a team together. Every interview I see from them, they're all joking around. They're always laughing. They love being around each other, it seems. So I think their future is super bright, and I honestly see them making the finals in the next few years coming up.
Yeah, I agree. I'm a little surprised you didn't say Denver, actually.
True.
Because they are coming
True,
off a
but
championship.
I just took it for granted,
but
I guess.
yeah. I was going to say Denver, but I'm going to go something else. I'm going to say the
Interesting.
Pelicans. Obviously, I have a friend who's a Pelicans fan. Zion's looking like how we thought he would be coming into the pre-draft process recently. Brandon Ingram obviously just got injured, but has been really good. Trey Murphy, the third, is someone who I think has all-star potential. And then when you look at what's around him, Herb Jones, Jose Alvarado, and then some others. Jordan Hawkins looked really good when he got into games this year. And I think they're maybe not a contender this year. They're going to be a contender next year, and I think the year
Yeah.
after for a little bit, assuming Zion obviously
Yeah,
stays healthy.
and out of controversy. We all know it's been going on with him over the past few years.
Oh yeah, I honestly completely forgot about
But
that.
I do want to talk about Denver for just a little bit. I do think that they probably have the brightest future short term in the league. I just really like shining light on these young teams that I really admire, and I really love just watching their tenacity and their joyfulness playing the game, and just it's so fresh after seeing like all these players like LeBron and Steph and KD. They're still amazing, don't get me wrong, but we've been watching them for so long. I just love freshness and bringing in new energy to the league, and the Thunder is the number one
Yeah.
team I see doing that right now. So I every time I watch them, it's a spectacle.
Wait, did you say
The
the Thunder or
Thunder.
the Nuggets?
Because the
Okay.
Nuggets, like, they're not youthful, and for as good as they are, they don't play that way. Like, Jokic is insane.
Yeah. Although the Murray Jokic pick and roll,
Yeah.
unstoppable
It's amazing.
under 5
It's
minutes.
I mean, it's some of the most unstoppable basketball I've ever seen in my life, bar LeBron. But
Yeah.
it's like they have already been through that period. I kind of saw that from them in the bubble in 2021. They've like had that bounce, that spark, and like for better or for worse, I don't see that from them anymore. They just, to me, are calm, collected. They don't let anything get to them. They play their style of basketball the exact same way every time. Where a team like the Thunder, they play similar ways every time. Shea's always going to get to 31. You're always going to get production out of J-Dub. But the way that they get the wins does change from game to game. Where Denver, like, I don't feel like they need to adjust because
methodical.
nobody's made them adjust. They just play their basketball and they win the game.
Yeah.
That's just how it goes.
It's like LeBron said on his podcast when he was like, I don't know why we're just running the same play over and
Yeah.
over until people stop it. That's exactly what
Yes.
Denver does. They just spam Murray Jokic pick and roll until someone stops it, which is
No.
usually never. We're coming up on almost an hour, so we could skip a lot of this, come
Yeah.
back to it later. But I want to do the top 5 Wizards players. In
Yeah,
the
let's
last
go
2
ahead
years.
and
do like
wrap
a
things
draft.
up with that. I think that's a good idea. So do you want to do it? I think it would be fun to do it person by person. Like you pick 5, 4, 3,
Yeah,
2,
and I
1.
think we should do a draft.
Or
we
we
should
just
do
do our own.
I
oh,
think
like
we should do
draft,
like a.
we draft. Oh,
I think we should do a
that's fun.
draft. You need a point guard, a shooting guard, a small forward, a
Okay.
power forward, and a center.
Eh,
So I'm gonna
And
flip
should
a
we go
coin.
off of skill or watchability? Like who's the most fun and who you liked the most, or who was the best objectively?
Let's
Okay.
do who you like,
like
the
that.
most.
I like that.
Who you like the most. But I mean that also could include the best. All right,
Yeah.
I'm gonna flip a coin.
Heads.
Heads or tails. And we'll do a
Sounds good.
snake draft.
All right.
It is tails, so I'll get first, and
Sounds
you'll
good.
get the next 2. So my first pick is obviously
Yeah.
John Wall is the extremely
Yes.
obvious answer. I'm gonna go with Brad, man.
Okay.
Bradley Beal. I mean, obviously John Wall. I love John Wall. I love what he brought. Brad's recent, and I mean that 30-point year was amazing. Obviously, he brought no playoff success at all, but one of my favorite games to watch was the Bradley Beal Russell Westbrook game against Brooklyn.
Okay,
So,
fair enough. I think that's a solid pick. Those are definitely 1A and 1B for me. Just personally, I do have John Wall in 1A, so you know that's who I'm going to have to draft with the second pick here. So to me, John Wall is the modern Washington Wizards. Just he comes out,
He is.
him
Oh, absolutely.
Dougieing out the first night really set the tone for what he's going to bring this franchise. I get it's what ultimately got him to leave, but showing personality, throwing up signs during the game, that to me is just like what I want when I watch a basketball game. I want the players to express themselves. I want the players to put their mark in the city, make it theirs. John Wall did that. You ask any Wizards fan, who's the player you think of when you think of the Washington Wizards in the 2000s, 2000s to 2020s, whatever that stretch, they're going to say John Wall 100% of the time. He just played with such joy. Every second he was playing on the court, you could tell he was having a blast. There was a honest conversation for a few years between who was the best point guard in the league, John Wall or Steph Curry. most blocks for a guard in one season ever. He's just he's just dominant.
He's dominant.
Exactly. There's nothing more you can say about him. He's
Kind of like
just
DeAndre.
one of the greatest players to ever put on a Wizards jersey, and the player that personally made me fall in love with the Wizards.
All right, who's your second pick?
Yeah,
Because I knew you were going to pick John Wall.
Obviously.
Well, I have a second
Okay.
pick in mind already. But
So I'm going to have to think a little bit about the second pick, because here is where things open up a lot more, and it becomes less about skill and more about just like who you personally love to watch.
Which is kind of sad when you think about it, because John Wall and Beal are like the only good Wizards players in the last 10 years.
And they're good, but they're not like insane. And the fact that you have like 20 other players you could put in here is pretty sad. Well, I already have the point guard spot taken up, and I think I know who you're going to take with the point guard spot. So I'm going to go ahead and take a crazy pick that I don't think anyone's going to see coming. I'm going to go Robin Lopez at center.
That's a good pick. Robin Lopez
Captain Hook is the only
fun.
thing that made that year worth watching before Westbrook came in. He just like something. I've said this many times, but something about the air in DC or something about the Wizards just really makes centers play better offensively than I've really ever seen them play anywhere else. Robin Lopez was no exception. That hook shot, I swear, it was 80% automatic. Every time he did it, it went in. He even took that hook 3-point shot that one time, if you remember that. That was insane. It almost went in. It didn't go in, but almost. And
I just remember one game.
you're good.
Sorry to interrupt you, but I just remember one game. Robin Lopez went on like a 10-0
Yes.
run by himself. Just
I know the
spamming
exact
hook
game you're talking
shots.
about that got them back into it. And that year was really like, that was a year that I really enjoyed as a Wizards fan. It was still kind of mid-pandemic. I was in college. It was really fun to just like chill with my friends, watch the Wizards. I didn't expect them to win any games, and then they went out and had that huge run after the All-Star break to make the playoffs. I was at that last game where they beat the Hornets to make the 8 seed and knock the Hornets out of the playoffs. And it really, to me, kind of revitalized the franchise in a little mini revitalization. Not like John Wall did, but
Yeah.
yeah.
It was like fun after a couple of years of not really
and
being
just
that
depression
fun.
of like John Wall injuries, one after another, just freak injuries that you never would see coming, and like having to move on from a player like that and move towards a new future and like building around a new guy. Robin Lopez really brought some needed freshness and energy into that team.
All right,
Okay.
so I got 2 picks. I'm going to
Yeah,
take Russell
yes.
Westbrook, obviously. I think you saw that. Russell Westbrook playing with the Wizards was so much fun. I bought it. I bought his jersey. I still have it. Definitely one of, and we'll do a ranking eventually of like the top Wizards seasons in as we remember them. And that season is definitely. I know they're only the 8 seed. That season was so much fun. And then for my center, I'm going to take the Polish Hammer.
Oh yeah.
Marcin Gortat. Gortat wall pick and roll is unstoppable.
Yes. And that's what I was saying with like players or centers really reaching those heights in DC. Like we've always had that good point guard play.
He was on
Phoenix
before. Yeah.
He played for the
He was like
Clippers. It was kind of lackluster. But with John Wall, he really unlocked something from him. He really needed a guy who could rebound and put back the ball and really just take care of that area of the floor. And Gortat did that better than anyone else at that time for the Wizards.
Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and take a pick that I think should surprise nobody. I'm going to go ahead and take Kyle Kuzma with my third pick. If you know me, you know I'm a huge Kyle Kuzma fan. He's the only Wizards jersey I own. I'm a Kuzmaniac. He was such a meme when he was in LA, at least for me, where like he was always being compared against Tatum. He was always being put in these conversations since he's an
so
LA
funny.
Laker. They love doing that.
They did it for Rui immediately too,
so
baby
funny.
Kawhi.
Which I know we've been saying for
Wizards
years.
fans been
but
saying
no
that
one
for
gave us the
years.
credit. But he came into DC in a weird situation. We were expected to compete. He had just won a championship with LA. He didn't really have to stay motivated, as you could see from Poole. A lot of players view that chip as really the ultimate goal. So he achieved that so young, but he stayed hungry. He wanted to learn from Brad. Every game he played with Beal, you could see him implementing more and more of Beal's game into his repertoire. And since Beal's left, he stepped into that franchise cornerstone role very well. He's repeatedly expressed how grateful he is for the opportunity to, fill that role, how grateful he is to be in DC, how much he loves DC, which I think a lot of people doubt, I think is genuine. DC has a lot of things to love, especially as a player. John Wall was famously always at Rose Bar. You could always catch him coming out. Um, so I really, especially at such a dark period for the Wizards franchise, it's so nice having somebody that wants to be in DC, wants to play for the fans, recognizes the fans. Like I said, he shouted us out for being the best crowd he's ever seen in Capital One when we were there. And yes, that's specifically. But he's really just, I think, been such a class act since he's been here. So, love the guy. And then, yep, I have another pick, but this is where things get very murky for me because besides Beal, I don't think I know a shooting guard that has been good for us. But I'm going to go ahead and take the easy pick and go Denny Avdia for my small forward. I was not the biggest Denny fan, I'm going to be honest. Some of his fans kind of turned me off with just how rabid they were, pushing for Denny to get more playtime and how insistent they were that he was going to break out. And I have to go ahead and apologize to those fans because they were completely right. The second Rui got traded and he stepped into that bigger role, we've seen him just explode offensively and defensively. I think he's the player with the brightest future right now on the Wizards roster, even with Bilal Coulibaly around. He's just stepping up in such a huge way this year when we really need him, and that to me just shows, even beyond good play, just maturity, dependableness, everything he said. He's been very, very professional. He said the right thing at all times, even when he wasn't satisfied with where he was with Scott Brooks. And in a very, very tough year for him personally, he's come out and killed people and really taken the steps that I personally want to see from him. Bodying. That's what I wanted to see. This is a big guy. He's 6'8", 225, something like that. He should be going around bodying people, and that's what he's been doing this year, and that's what I've been very, very happy with. So, I'm happy to have him on the team. He's on a great contract. Hope to have him for many years. Hope he's a career Wizard and, lifts the banner one day with us. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. So for my next two picks, I'm going to kind of go out there a little bit. Well, with one of them. So for my power forward, I'm going to pick Otto Porter Jr. Obviously, Otto Porter was in the first draft class I remember watching as a Wizards fan. So holds a special place. He recently retired, so good luck to Otto. NBA champion with the Warriors. And he got a big contract with the Wizards, but I always liked him. And then for my small forward, I'm going to go crazy. And I'm going to go with
Jordan McRae, the double-double king.
Jordan McRae, man. He played 1 year in DC, and he went nuts that year. And it was like 10 games, too. And I was like, this guy can really hoop. And then he kind of faded out of the league.
He was the only bright spot of that three-guard lineup, I swear. He was like kind of a combo.
I love Jordan McRae. I follow him on Twitter. I love this dude.
One of my favorite memories being in a Wizards game. Double-double king. So I'm going to go ahead for my small forward. Shooting guard. I'm going to go ahead and make a pick that I'd be curious to see how many Wizards fans remember. I'm going to go ahead with Garrison Matthews. Because of one moment. If you know Garrison Matthews, you know the exact moment I'm talking about.
You know.
Nets Wizards making that comeback to win the game in 2 seconds. He was huge with that steal, and I think that one play really represents what he brought to DC and what he brings to every team.
Also, he's a foul merchant.
We need that. But just bringing that tenacity, the grit, the grind, he's going to put his body on the floor for however long he's on that court, and it's something we sorely need at that time. That was kind of a tough year until we got Westbrook and really turned things around. We were just kind of floundering past that 10-3 start. Or no, sorry, that was later. I'm getting it all confused.
Your timeline.
But he just really brought something to DC that I don't think we've really had too much with our teams.
We had Jordan Goodwin for a bit.
No, it's not the same. He just I don't know. I personally loved Garrison Matthews. But, you know, I think that's the perfect player to just kind of round out my draft here.
All right, so for those keeping track, my team: Ben, Russell Westbrook, Bradley Beal, Jordan McRae, Otto Porter, Marcin Gortat,
Yeah.
and then Aidan, John Wall, Matthews, Denny, Kyle Kuzma, and Robin Lopez. That's gonna wrap it up. I don't remember what our name was for this. Um,
Yeah, thanks for
but
listening.
episode 1 is
Keep
done.
tuning in if you
So
want.
yeah,
Give
five
us 5
stars.
stars on whatever audio platform you choose. And we'll catch you next time.